there is good and there is bad. There is something good in bad and there is something bad in good, and we're just going to discuss about those things. And in this video I am going to talk about good and evil, and I am going to share some of the perspective by people like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus. Actually, I was introduced to this concept while I was reading Meditation by Marcus Aurelius, and at that moment I thought this is the original thought of Marcus Aurelius. Then after I realized that no, it was not the thought of Marcus Aurelius, but he just took that thought from another person, another philosopher called Epictetus. And while I was reading the discourses of Epictetus, then I realized, okay, this one is the original thought of the Epictetus. Before we get into the good and evil, there is kind of another concept as well in which I just want to get into. That is something called something that is in our control and something that is not in our control. And it is another concept by Epictetus, and he repeated this thing in his discourse a lot. Okay, so he mentioned something like, okay, the main chief task of a man's life is continuously distinguish between the things that are in his control and the things that are not in his control. Okay, so most of the time as a person, as a human being, we tend to control, or we tend to look at the things that are out of our control. Okay, so we continuously want to change, or we continuously want to get some kind of control over the situations that are out of control. Okay, so Epictetus beautifully mentioned that first make a distinction between the things that I do have control and the things that I do not have control. Okay, and another questions that really arises after this is, and if the thing is in my control, then probably I don't have to worry about any kind of thing on that, because I have control over this thing. Okay, so if I really want, I can change that as well. And the thing about the things that we do not have control over, there is another thing that we can do, is simply accept it. Okay, so we can simply accept the things that are not in our control, and by doing that thing we are just kind of, and if we really accept the things that we do not have any kind of control, then probably we are going to be at peace. If someone is being rude to me, then that is external, because I cannot control those situations. Okay, but the thing that I can control is how am I going to look at that situations, what definition that I'm going to do, what definition that I'm going to give to that situations. Okay, what I mean by that is what thought I'm going to think. Okay, that is totally in my control. Or like what judgment that I'm going to do, that is totally in my control as well. Okay, so those are the things that I can really do with the internal thing. And if I do not have any kind of control over the outer situations or some events, then why am I going to feel sad about those things, or why am I going to judge them? Okay, there is no need of that. And coming back to the concept of good and evil, most of the time we judge. Okay, we judge something out of ourselves as good and evil. And if and coming back to the good and evil, we really judge something out of ourselves. So coming back to the good and evil, most of the time we judge or we affirm something as good and evil that is outer of ourselves. Okay, so if there is kind of event that is going on, then we are going to judge them as good and evil, and because of that most of the time we can say our life, or we put ourselves into the misery. Okay, Epictetus beautifully mentioned this thing in which he said something like, I do not know what are the things that are going to fall. Okay, but what use I can make of those things, that is where good and evil. And he mentioned that the outer situations is not good nor evil. Okay, but how we are going to perceive those things, or what things that I am going to do after that situations that happened to me, or if I just go through that event, that is something there is good and evil. And if I can just make something good of some kind of event that is given to me, then there is good. Okay, but if I just use, or if I just misuse some kind of event, then that is evil. Okay, so instead of seeking good and evil outside, we can simply look within ourselves and find where there is good and where there is evil. Okay, and if we really continuously do that, then probably if we really being aware of those things, then yeah, we are going to recognize as something good and something evil. And when we see the evil, because we know the ugliness of the evil, we don't want ourselves to go through, or we don't want ourselves to put into that situation again. And if we really understand this thing in deeper level, or if we really can grasp this concept, then most of the time we are going to save ourselves from the anxiety. And what do I mean by that is, let's take an example, and just take this example. Okay, so let's say I have made the plan to go out with my friends, okay, but suddenly it's raining. Now that is totally is not in my control, okay, but how am I going to see that situations? Okay, and there is a positive view and there is negative view. Okay, so first negative view is I can be furious, okay, I can just curse on nature for raining as well. But and on the other hand, I can look for the like positive hand as well. Okay, so that is I have gained 1 or 2 hours, so in that hour I can just read a kind of book, or I can watch movie, I can do any kind of thing. Okay, so that is something how we should judge good and evil. Okay, so instead of judging something outside of us as good and evil, we should always focus on ourselves, or we should always look within ourselves. Okay,